It's a cold day in London, and I plan to warm it up with an interview to innovation expert Daniel from the National Health Service, NHS UK. I am Jenny Tsuboyama, the Innovation Ambassador for the Global Innovation Management Institute, and I will bring this innovation series to you. Let's meet Daniel. And here we are with Daniel Jeffery, the Head of Innovation and Delivery at NHS National Health Service Digital UK. We will grasp all his knowledge and expertise on this area, and he will take us navigating into what is his day-to-day role and position at NHS. So Daniel, please, can you tell us more about you?
More about me, about my role, my day-to-day role. So head of innovation and delivery at NHS Digital, specifically within a department called the Data Security Centre. This is ultimately where the security operations for the NHS kind of takes place. That's both in terms of monitoring and threat intelligence and advisory and guidance, all the way through to coming up with new novel ideas about how we can enhance our existing services, but also deliver new services out to the system. And by the system, I mean hospitals, ambulance services, general practitioners, etc. So we come up with new services, new ideas, but also we look at how we can improve or innovate on existing technologies to make them more secure, but at the same time make them more fit for purpose for the business. Everything we do, yes, has a security benefit, that's what we're here for, but ultimately it needs to pivot around the need of the business to make patient or enhance the patient outcome or increase the usability for the clinician of that piece of technology or that process.
So that's what we call innovation with purpose, right?
Yes, yes.
And so now is the moment to show that pride. Which are the innovation stories or innovation success cases that you have within NHS?
So one that kind of springs to mind, because it's pretty much hot off the press, as they say, is we innovated around a process called joiners, movers, leavers. It doesn't sound particularly interesting. It's not exactly kind of disruptive in the way that Uber was or anything along those lines, but it has a fundamental transformative effect on security across the email estate, but also the experience of onboarding new medical staff into trusts. So the problem statement was this. It will take anywhere between 5 and 15 working days for an identity to be provisioned through an email. So basically getting your email account and access to your apps and things like this. So when you join, normally anywhere between 5 and 15 days. The security problem with this is, one, there is a lag time between registering and then being authenticated, allowed to do stuff, but also, that's joiners, when people leave, closing down accounts, closing down access, didn't happen in a rigorous manner. Therefore, you had a whole bunch of what we call dormant or orphaned accounts, which means that they are subject to being hijacked, identity theft, etc. All the things you read about in the news and stuff. So what we did was fairly simple. We automated the joiners, movers, leavers process. We found an existing technology using staff records and the national email service. We automated the process, so instead of it taking between 5 and 15 days to authenticate someone saying, "Hi, this is Jenny, here's all my stuff," and that takes 15 days, it happens in a 24-hour period. 24-hour period. So what's the net effect of that? Well, it means that we can now effectively eradicate orphaned accounts across 1.4 million mailboxes. And we can also free up tens of thousands of hours on the front line for the administrators and the clinicians who have to go through this painful process. And that means we save the NHS, when this is fully rolled out, we will save the NHS about £8 million a year, which is a lot more than we paid for the actual innovation itself. So that is a massive success, and it's an example of kind of just thinking, it doesn't have to be shiny, brand new things. It's about, right, how can we solve some of these problems that we're experiencing today to improve our position for tomorrow, rather than necessarily reinventing the wheel or coming up with the next best thing from the wheel. It's about actually taking a considered look at the problem space in which we operate and identifying those things with a little tweak will have a massive impact.
I really like the case you have mentioned, and I think it has a lot of impact, not only saving, in terms of saving money, but also in terms of giving more security and giving a more access and a speedy solution to that, right?
Yeah.
And so, in those lines, which challenges have you faced maybe with that project or maybe other projects within NHS that maybe is not so successful, but maybe we all can learn about some of the things that you may have to say on that?
So, one thing with the NHS obviously is massive. Things that we've learned of challenges we've encountered. So, we do not have a mandate, right? So things we deliver, we cannot enforce onto our customer base, right? Yeah. We're not like the military, where if the Security Operations Centre in the Ministry of Defence says we want to do this thing for security, it just happens, right? Everyone has to do it. We can't do that. We basically have to sell a free thing to our customers, which are trusts and hospitals and ambulances. It's a bizarre thing, but it's also necessary because it actually gives us good feedback about why they wouldn't necessarily adopt things even though they're free, because they don't quite meet their business needs. It means that we are laser focused about ensuring the business need, the business benefit. So we take that joiners, movers, leavers process beforehand. When we've actually gone out and kind of spoken to trusts about it, would you like to use this thing, it's free, we've never really sold it on a security credential. It's always been on a, we'll save you time, we'll save you money, we'll get you doctors through the door quicker. Security is somewhere down the line, right? Yeah. But that's how, so the challenge there is making sure, convincing them that it's the right thing to do. Another challenge being NHS being the NHS is it's obviously, again, a huge organisation, an old organisation that has everything from legacy equipment bought in the mid to late 90s that won't get decommissioned until the mid 2020s, all the way through to the most bleeding edge technologies, bleeding edge kind of approaches to things like genomics and all those kind of good stuff, and everything in between that spectrum. So our challenge is, as a programme, to secure that spectrum of technological capability and help them be networked together in ways in which they were never designed to do or to be, whilst also ensuring that the confidentiality, integrity and availability of data is not compromised in any way, shape or form, as far as humanly and practically possible. That's the nub of it. How do we basically enable the NHS to evolve and achieve its tech vision, as they call it.
And keep on functioning and working at the same time, right?
Exactly.
Operation and innovation.
Yes, and so that is a challenging space to be operating in. But the way in which we kind of address that and tackle that is the innovation function within the Data Security Centre is new. We realised that it was something that we desperately needed to have. So we are currently spinning up an innovation factory or innovation hub or whatever kind of garage, whatever kind of building you want to call it. But ultimately what that will be is where folks from the marketplace, i.e. our customer base, can come to us and say, here's our problems, here's the types of things that we want to achieve. We can have folks from the department and NHS England come to us and say, here's what the policy is saying, here's the challenges that are going to be coming up in the future, and we can basically ideate across those and understand which ones have the priority by qualifying them across a number of different areas, and then taking them through that kind of life cycle process to come up with a few ideas which we will take forward, because we don't have all the money in the world. We have to focus our time, effort and treasure on those things which will have the greatest impact within the financial confines that we operate in.
And so you have mentioned some of the process that maybe you are following, right?
Mhm.
So please, can you navigate us more in detail about how to make those innovations real, how to make them happen?
Mhm.
Do you have a process or?
Yeah, well, I'd say we're standing up the factory, so we've got a couple of what we call pipe cleaners where we'll be testing the process end to end. So there's a couple of what we call no-brainers we just are going to be putting through this innovation factory. They've been qualified, they've been justified, and they've been funded. But ultimately, the way in which it will work is we want to have a multitude of sources of ideas, yeah,
Okay.
to come into the factory. So that could be problems from the ground, you know, clinicians and what have you. Security problems identified by security specialists around the system. So we have a almost like a Chatham House kind of group across the NHS called the Cyber Associates Network,
Okay.
which is all the kind of heads of security and all those kind of network architects and all those kind of things. Peer-to-peer led network. Within that there is a there's like a ideation box or whatever. They come up with ideas, they talk about common problems, common themes, put those forward. We kind of challenge backwards and forwards, and then we kind of take those through to the first stage of ideation where we start really qualifying kind of very high level light touch prototypes, all the way through that whole kind of MVP, iterative agile process. And then once fully qualified, once you're in that MVP kind of beta stage, make a decision about whether or not to actually fully deploy or not. And then you hands over into the delivery side of things. So we have a innovation and delivery. Innovation is all about kind of succeeding fast or failing quickly. And then once justified, once understood, then it's a handover into delivery with all the appropriate governance and wrappers. Because everything we do, if there is any kind of clinical component, if we touch clinical data, there has to go through a certain additional level of assurance, which not traditional, but a more robust dedicated delivery function will take care of.
And so in that process that you are mentioning, the idea, the suggestion box that you mentioned, are those just ideas that pop up from whoever in the network that you mentioned, the
Can be.
architects, or is that you have somebody that, for example, the strategy team saying like, we have this challenge, we need to address them. So here's
so that's one channel, that kind of bottom up channel from the Cyber Associates Network is one channel into the box.
Okay.
There's also where is the NHS going, and what are the problems that strategic one. So it's a top down approach as well.
So you will receive from both.
From both, yeah. The top down ones tend to be longer term.
Okay.
You know, kind of how do we solve for identity in the future? Yeah, so at the moment, identity across the NHS is a tricky one because there's a whole bunch of historical systems which have their own identity solutions. It could be a badge, it could be a login, it could be something on your phone, it could be whatever. We want to get towards one because that makes life easier. It's also better for security. We can move towards a thing called zero trust architecture, and ultimately it is more cost efficient. And one of the design principles has to be value for taxpayers' money. So having one unified identity solution in the future is kind of a bit of a nirvana. You know, now are questions around, you know, how do we do that? Do we use a COTS product that we can then tailor or whatever a little bit? Or do we really look to understand distributed ledger, blockchain? How can we use that? And there's work going on at the moment in the north of England, one of the training hospitals there, where they're actually looking at distributed ledgers, like a passport across their training hospital. So if you are a consultant and you come in, you have your kind of passport and your distributed ledger. If you want access to a particular application, the idea being it just takes the information it needs, verifies who you are through your electronic staff record and your registration with something like the General Medical Council, I don't know, something along those lines, to say that yes, this person is a doctor, tick, good. Yes, they're on the payroll, good. Yes, they're employed at that hospital, good. Right. So within that, we know that person is now fine. Okay. Are they allowed to have access to this application? You know, you can imagine it's X-rays.
So now that is working, or is in?
That is something we're exploring. That's something that is being piloted and tested out. and it's all part of the kind of wider government blockchain initiative. But if that is successful, that could have
a lot of
fantastic benefits. Fantastic benefits. And one of the things is that is a real sticking point for clinicians, because if you go and you put your login into the reader, it can take up to 45 seconds for you to be authenticated. Now, if you're in a busy A&E department, you know, you're not going to be logging in, waiting 45 seconds, and then taking it out. What they do, quite a lot of the time, cut the top of the card off and sellotape it in so you remain perpetually logged in, which is good for business, I suppose, but it's a bit of a problem from a security perspective. So these are the kind of business problems, real world problems that we're trying to solve through kind of the innovation process.
And within your team, how do you prepare your team to manage innovation?
So in terms of, so we have a dedicated innovation team. Okay. Yeah, so we have an innovation lead, we've got a data architect, security architect, etc., who kind of run the process, run the function. But everybody in our department, from on my side of the house, can bring ideas, sponsor ideas, champion ideas, to push it through the system, or push it through the process, and then champion that into delivery. So if they find out a better way of doing things, if they found out there's something that's coming through, either from the strategic perspective or from the shop floor, they go, well, that sounds like a really good idea. I've got some ideas about how we can solve that problem. They can go away. We'll use it as almost like a professional development point. Okay. So they go away, do some research. Right, how can I actually do this? How can I architect it? What's the technologies behind it? Or processes, or whatever it may be. Come up with a high-level, one-pager. We kind of then go to start the qualification process through that. And the idea is, it starts to, if my delivery team are also my innovation team, it means you get cross-fertilisation of skills and disciplines. You also get folks motivated because they actually can own something new, something interesting, from inception all the way through to delivery and handover into live service, which you can't always do. Normally it's kind of segregated. Here's this part of the process. It's in silos. Yeah, so we then have a fairly motivated kind of fluid, if you want to use that kind of word, team or dynamic team that can actually. So it's a lot of also knowledge sharing, and it's not just working. We've got a knowledge. So we've got a knowledge repository or what have you, a bit like Teams or something along these lines. But also within the DSC itself, it's email last policy. All the walls and things like that are kind of, you can write on them, and the whole kind of Kanban orientation. But it is about genuine collaborative working. It's all hot desks. So we've got folks from innovation sitting with operations, basically end users of some of these technologies in the SOC, saying, right, if I were to do this, would that work for you? And they'd say, no, that makes life more difficult because I've got another 4 clicks to go through, or something along those lines. And then it's kind of collaborative between end user and designer working to actually do enhancements and innovations. And finally, for all our audience, and maybe people that are in the same position as you, suffering all the challenge of this innovation, of the change management, of all the how to deliver successfully, which are the key 3 things that maybe you can give like a tip or lessons learned, or that you can summarize more or less all this knowledge that you have and experience. So in terms of trying to overcome some of the common hurdles. Yeah. So I think the first one is, or action point, if you want to call it as well. So. Yeah, well, I think with innovation, especially if you're operating what I call like a traditional sector, i.e., not in the Silicon Valley world, right? So kind of, indeed, that's why we want, because there are many as you're like. It's clarity of benefit. Okay. So you need to be able to articulate the benefit to the business in the most kind of succinct manner possible. So, if we are working in financial services, if we're working in energy and utilities and healthcare, the folks at the top of the tree traditionally are going to be kind of not as technology au fait as some of the use this word lightly, geeks, who actually will kind of design, build it for you. So, as a kind of leader in this space, you need to be able to take what they say, be the translation layer, and basically convince in a succinct way, or convey in a succinct way, why those who are funding it should care and why it makes their lives easier.
is the number one. I agree totally.
Yeah.
I think regardless the culture,
Yeah,
regardless the
absolutely.
country, that's the one.
So in health and care, it was acute. It was an acute problem for us when we first started out about a year ago. The CEOs of trusts, the chief clinical information officers in trusts and hospitals, they saw cyber as a IT problem, and it was Bob or Keith in the corner. That's their problem. We don't need to worry about it. It's not a board level agenda item. It can just get solved with BAU. Those in the know understand that isn't quite right. Actually, cybersecurity, if you build that into your business, becomes an enabler of the thing that you're trying to achieve. So, through analysis and what have you, few key bullet points for the board, which says, being cyber secure enables patient outcomes. That's it. That's it. And then they understand that. They then ask the question, how? You get into a bit more of a interesting discussion with them, and by the time you leave within the 15 minutes you're given, they want to have their board level training service from us, and they want to have, they want to understand more. They want to have these services, technologies rolled out for them by us, but starts off with that kind of why, and then the how. So the second point then would be to fail quickly, and don't be scared to fail.
No.
Yeah. That, I know it's cheesy and corny and what have you, and everyone says it in the innovation space, but especially in the NHS, especially in healthcare, failing has traditionally not been an option. So actually being able to put your hand up and say, yeah, we spent a tiny bit of money on this, proved it didn't work, seemed like a good idea, it didn't work, here's the lessons we learned, here's how we're going to improve. Doing that quickly, succinctly, is a bit of a mind change for the NHS. Okay. But we are driving that one forward. The third point is always measure the benefits. It's not just a piece of technology that is fun to have. It must have a benefit, and it must be tangible. Especially in our space, it must be tangible. So it doesn't just have to be financial. It can be operational.
Yeah.
For us, it could be for security. It's about reduction of risk, or giving us greater insight into the threat environment or the things that we are trying to protect. But always keeping those close in mind, even if it is the most intuitive thing that you could do, unless you can prove its benefit, it's not worth doing, and you won't get any investment for it after a certain period of time, and therefore it fails.
Those were 3 really key tips or key takeaways from Daniel Jeffery, Head of Innovation and Delivery at NHS Digital. Really, it was very, very, very good to meet you and to have or grasp all those insights from you, Daniel.
Pleasure.
And I think I quite agree also with all of them. We may have more talk afterwards. Yeah. And I invite you to stay connected with GIMI Innovation Series for the next chapter. Thank you.
Thank you.